We're standing here with Stephen Green, Chief Program Officer for Noodle Partners. Exciting to be here. The clouds have finally lifted. It's been a little gloomy here in San Diego, but it's always good to be here with you. Look, let's just call out the biggest thing going on at Noodle right now. Tell us a little bit about the Hubble acquisition, what it means for Noodle, trying to embrace the $10 trillion market that's coming for upskilling and retraining by 2030. Share a little bit more about that.
It's a really great question. We are incredibly excited about the acquisition of Hubble. We are now have fully embraced them as Noodle South Africa. And the reality of it is our evolution as a company has been thinking about what we can deliver for universities in a way that maximizes our expertise, the services that they need. And at our outset, it was much more about leveraging providers and kind of the great ecosystem of subcontractors and different ed tech companies like many that are here to actually coalesce them to deliver those services for universities rather than us doing those services ourselves. And what we realized was the management and the coordination of that ecosystem of individualized providers all doing different components of an operation was incredibly difficult. It created all kinds of gaps and inconsistencies with how we delivered services for universities. And so we kind of slowly began to realize, okay, these are the types of services that we can execute better with more control, more transparency with the universities, more consistency. And so starting with enrollment and moved to marketing. And as we've moved through that journey, learning design was really one of the last frontiers, and Hubble was one of the best instructional design providers that we had in our portfolio of instructional design providers. And what we began to realize was, because we were modeled leveraging subcontractors, and then the needs of our universities were changing, so it wasn't just build these full-on 15-course degree programs, it was we need help with our building a handful of courses for our undergraduate students that they can be leveraged in different ways. We needed other kinds of learning development needs that our model wasn't structured for. And so we found ourselves kind of bending in pretzels, trying to like figure out how to deliver what our universities were asking for. And Hubble was a great contributor in our builds with a number of our university partners, and acquiring them, bringing them into our fold allows us now to have learning design in-house and really be able to map to whatever a university wants to do from a learning design perspective. It could be full-on degree programs. It could be building courses in our lifelong learning platform that's chunked out in different modules. It could be any number of things that we just were unable to really comfortably do before.
So they're bringing the design capability to you, but they're also bringing you into new markets around the globe as well.
That's right. And I would say that that's actually intermediate term. Shorter to intermediate term, it was much more about the ability to be more flexible in how we serviced our universities. Intermediate to long term, they are in nearly 20 different countries outside of the U.S. that we are not in, right? From an operating space. And so as they become more ingrained in a part of our DNA, thinking about how those institutions in various parts of the UK, various parts of Africa, various parts of Australia can actually leverage what we do with strategy, services, and technology to help those institutions in those geographic markets as well, is something that is exciting to us, but that's an intermediate to long term. We've got our hands full in the US right now.
So you're getting boots on the ground in more countries. Noodle is probably one of the best examples of understanding what's on the mind of universities almost everywhere because of that boots on the ground dynamic. Look, this conference has been a lot of conversation around coming out of COVID. What is higher ed going to look like? How is it transforming? What are you hearing from your university partners? What is top of mind for them?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's really apropos to kind of one of the sub-themes of the conference. A number of different things, and coming out of COVID, I think the thing that is most common is a fiscal pressure, right? That is all institutions. Enrollment is flat to down, depending on the type of institution or what your programmatic offerings are. And so what's happening is institutions are thinking more intentionally, and to be honest, more thoughtfully about where they invest on their campuses to help diversify the impact that they're looking to have, both to kind of get out in front of the fiscal challenges that they are facing, but have a more diversified impact. I think prior to the pandemic, and even in some cases in the earlier parts of the pandemic, it was very much, we're going to launch this program, right? We're gonna take this degree and we're going to scale it online, or these degrees, or what have you. Now the conversation is, if I were to invest those dollars in a program or a set of programs, is that the best use of those dollars when we've got undergraduate challenges that we're working through? We've got student learner and persistence challenges on ground that we're working through. What's the best use of funds? And so it's a really exciting time for us to be strategic thought partners with our universities and help them walk through various options and scenarios and figure out what makes the most sense for them. And that's pretty exciting.
So it sounds like a lot more of a fiscal conversation.
And I would say kind of fiscal, probably the most common. I would say that the needs of students coming into these institutions, coming into higher education post-pandemic, has actually changed pretty dramatically, right? I think there's been a lot of preliminary analysis or early days analysis on students that were coming out of high school during the pandemic and what their lack of preparation might have been, not just academically, but socially, emotionally. And so there's a lot of conversations at our universities about what they need to do to be more intentional about the support ecosystem that they are delivering to students from a social, emotional perspective, mental health services. Just there's a openness to those conversations and how institutions are going to tackle that, because it wasn't as pervasive a challenge for them prior to the pandemic. So that's another kind of theme: fiscal, and how do they create the right environment for students today?
No, it's funny you bring that up. We've seen that in our survey data of students in terms of what they're valuing more and making more decisions based on those ancillary services that they feel like are most pertinent now. The fiscal conversation, look, Noodle's been an innovator in this space. Your model's a little bit different in terms of fee for service. How is that entrance into the marketplace, and then how's that being received now, given maybe the new mindset that some of these schools are having to take on?
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a ongoing debate around is fee for service, right, better than rev share? Is rev share fee better than fee for service? And I think the right approach is not to ask the question in a binary, but all of these institutions are different. They all have different financial situations, different strategic objectives in terms of how they engage with students and what they want their trajectory to look like. And so a marketplace is a good thing, right, for a reason, right? And you've got to have different options in a marketplace. And I think for us, introducing the fee-for-service model was we felt a very thoughtful way, and the market has responded to it, that there shouldn't just be one way to go online, right? And there should be different modalities or approaches that mesh with an institution's strategic desires and where they're trying to go. And so fee-for-service isn't right for every university. Rev share isn't right for every university. It's really the conversation around what makes sense for them. And we have a lot of our university partners who have rev share in some and fee-for-service in other parts of the campus. And that's all part of the ecosystem. I think for us, what we pride ourselves on in our fee-for-service model is that the building of institutional capacity is, if we believe in the value, not just of higher education and what it delivers to students, but that higher education from a sustainability standpoint, these institutions need to understand and learn how to operationalize various elements of their programs. And there's always going to be more that they need expertise and help to do, but a fee-for-service model that looks at what are the services that we offer, what is the technology that we offer, where are they at, and what's the right mesh point between what they have capacity in now, what they want to aspire to build capacity in, and mesh along the way. And that could move, right? There could be changes in that annually, every couple of years, right? And so I think just having that flexibility, having that ability to move that mesh point as the market changes, as the institutions change, is just something that we feel very strongly about. And again, it's not right for every institution, but but we feel strongly that the marketplace dynamic is important, and our model allows some flexibility that's helpful.
What I think you're describing is the need for a much more creative, malleable, and therefore innovative atmosphere. You've been here for 48 hours. I think our space is changing rapidly. What things would you point to higher ed leaders focusing on for 23, and maybe even beyond that? What excites you about where the space is going beyond 23?
Yeah, no. You know, a couple of different things. One, and it's another sub theme of the conference as well, is the intersection between universities and employers has got to actually become an intersection. It's becoming a binary. Do employers train on skills better because higher education isn't delivering, and higher education kind of in a space where its value is being questioned by some. And I think it's not an either or. People are going to need upskilling, but people are going to need the type of critical analysis and thinking and how to process the world that higher education delivers. And the irony in some of the conversations that we've been having is that the great number of people that are on the side of saying that higher education is becoming less value actually have higher education degrees, right? Like it's like this funny. So I think for me, not just in 2023 and for us as a company moving forward, how higher education and industry mesh together, right? And not look opposite sides of the fence, but think about delivering the best of both so that learners, students benefit in all the right ways. I think that's something that we're pushing on and thinking about thoughtful ways to engage with employers, with universities, trying to reduce the cost of education, but creating pathways where that skill and kind of thought, thinking, critical analysis overlap is happens for everyone. And so we've got some really cool initiatives that we're pushing in the healthcare space around nursing and optometry and PharmD, which is effectively looking to bridge the gap between the labor shortage in those industries and the funding that it takes for students to actually engage in those industries and get that education that's necessary, and then solve the shortage issues. So we're really focused on that.
Let me keep you there for just one quick second. Look, you and I have talked about this. We should be coming to a time where, again, to your point, employers and higher ed providers are meshing to a greater degree. You should be able to get a degree and also be certified with the leading, the leading companies in the industry that you're focused on. How do we go from just this being talk to actually an integration that is the best for students? What advice would you give employers to be better partners for higher ed?
Yeah.
Or vice versa?
I think one of the things that we spend a lot of time on and pride ourselves in understanding is the importance of faculty at institutions, right? At colleges and universities. And I think a lot of the conversation that's been happening from our perspective with employers and institutions is at an administrative level. Engaging the faculty in those conversations and not just from a pedagogical perspective, but from a future of learning perspective, and allowing them to have some input, agency, ownership over where those mesh points are right for their given institutions, their disciplines, their industries, I think is a part of the conversation that we are, I think is going to need to happen, because I think, employers can talk to, central administrators, but the power and the reason why institutions are so well regarded and their brand strength is so strong is the power of the faculty and what they are imparting in our society. And I just think involving them in the conversation, and that's been one of the best things that's probably happened from a higher education evolution standpoint, is that post-pandemic, the faculty are really engaging in really thoughtful ways about where, in a lot of our institutions, what the arc of teaching looks like and what the arc of their research looks like and how they engage with students. And I think is that just that conversation continues to happen, there'll be much more collaboration and innovation.
Stephen, thanks so much. Always good to hang with you. I know you got to run. Appreciate a few moments out here in San Diego. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you.
All right, man.
Thank you.
Thanks, bro.
Thank you.